the jungle is alive. Not just with the calls of birds or the distant roar of a predator, but with the rhythm of life itself, a constant hum, a pulse beneath the canopy. Shafts of sunlight pierce through the dense leaves and broken streaks, dancing across the forest floor where roots twist like ancient serpents. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of wet soil, rotting fruit, and the musk of unseen creatures. And here, moving like shadows among the green, are our ancestors. They were not yet the masters of the world. Not yet the builders of cities or the makers of machines. They were part of the jungle, as vulnerable as the deer, as hunted as the boar, and as watchful as the monkeys that screamed warnings from high above. Survival was not a choice, it was the only thread holding them to life. Their bodies told the story of adaptation. Muscles lean, skin weathered by sun and rain, feet hardened from years of gripping stone and soil. They could not outrun the great cats or match the strength of an angry bull elephant, but they had learned to read the jungle as if it were a book written in scents, sounds, and tiny signs in the mud. Every day began with hunger. The deep ache in the belly was the alarm clock of the wild. Long before the sun climbed high, the group would stir in the shelter of their crude lean-to, a structure of branches and leaves tucked between tree roots. Fires were rare, too much smoke invited predators, so the morning began in the cool shadows. The leader, usually the eldest and wisest, scanned the air for scent. A faint sweetness could mean ripe fruit nearby. A hint of musk might signal a predator's trail. The jungle spoke in whispers, and those whispers could mean life or death. They moved in small groups, each member with a role. The strongest carried stone-tipped spears, crude but deadly if thrown well. Others carried woven baskets or animal skins to collect fruits, roots, and water. The youngest and swiftest climbed trees, scouting for danger or hidden food. Food was not guaranteed. Some days the forest offered abundance. A tree heavy with figs, a fallen bird's nest with warm eggs, or a startled deer caught in a simple snare. Other days were merciless, and they returned with nothing but bitter leaves to chew on. Hunger sharpened their minds, forced them to experiment, pounding roots to remove poison, cracking nuts with stone, or chasing small prey into nets woven from vines. Water was life. Streams and pools could be dangerous. Crocodiles lurked in the stillness. They learned to watch the birds. Flocks that descended to drink and rose unharmed signaled safety. They carried water in hollowed gourds, plugging the openings with leaves to keep it fresh. Danger was everywhere. A rustle in the undergrowth could be a harmless lizard, or a python thick as a man's waist. Shadows high in the trees might be monkeys or a leopard stalking silently. Every step was a gamble. When they heard the deep cough of a cat, the group froze, pressing against the bark, hearts hammering. No sudden movements. No sound. The cat might pass, or it might not. They knew fear well, but they also knew courage. The jungle was not only predator and prey, it was home. The same trees that hid danger also hid safety. They built sleeping platforms high in the branches when the ground felt unsafe. They smeared themselves with crushed leaves to hide their scent. And they spoke. Not in words as we know them, but in calls, grunts, and gestures that carried meaning. Food, danger, come. A raised hand could halt the group. A pointed finger could save a life. Over time their calls grew richer, more layered. The seeds of language took root here, in the damp shadows of the forest. At night the jungle changed. Cicadas hummed louder, frogs croaked, and unseen creatures moved in the darkness. Fire, when they dared to use it, kept them warm and lit the small circle of safety. Its crackle was more than sound, it was a heartbeat, a promise that for tonight they could rest. Around the flames they shared food, mended tools, and pressed close for warmth. Children fell asleep to the murmurs of the adults, stories not yet spoken in full words, but told in tone, gesture, and the occasional mimicry of an animal's cry. Storms were both gift and curse. Rain filled their water stores and softened the earth, making roots easier to dig. But lightning could shatter trees, and swollen rivers could sweep away anything in their path. They learned to weave shelters tighter, to lash belongings high, to huddle together until the fury passed. Seasons changed, though the jungle's green never faded. Some months brought fruits in abundance, others a lean time when hunting was their only hope. They followed migration patterns, shadowing herds at a distance. They scavenged from kills left by larger predators, driving vultures away with shouts and waving arms. The elders taught the young how to tell edible from poisonous, how to sharpen stone into blades, how to set traps without leaving human scent. Mistakes were costly, a single misstep could mean death. But each generation learned faster, adapted better. Injuries were common, cuts, bites, sprains, but they had their medicine. Leaves that cooled fever, roots that dulled pain, sap that sealed wounds. They watched the animals for clues, which plants a sick monkey chewed, which leaves a wounded deer sought. The bond within the group was their greatest strength. Alone no one survived long. Together they defended their young, shared their food, and mourned their dead. Death was part of the jungle's law. They buried the fallen shallow in the soil, covering the grave with stones to keep scavengers away. Some left offerings, a shell, a feather, a piece of polished stone, as if to honor the one who was gone. Over years their tools grew sharper, their shelters sturdier, their hunts more efficient. Slowly they began to shape the jungle to their needs, clearing small spaces for sunlight to reach the ground, encouraging certain plants to grow closer to camp. Without knowing it, they were planting the first seeds of civilization. Yet for all their growing skill, they never lost respect for the jungle. It could feed them one day and starve them the next. It could hide them from predators or lead them into an ambush. They moved with caution, with humility, with the knowledge that they were part of its balance. And so, through countless generations, through rain and drought, through danger and discovery, they survived. Not because they were the strongest, but because they learned, adapted, and remembered. The jungle still whispers their story. In the rustle of leaves, in the tracks by the riverbank, in the flicker of movement at the edge of sight, it is there, the memory of those who came before. They were our beginnings. Their courage, their hunger, their fire, it burns still in us.